Oh, what's going on, Coaching Success Radio? Today we are talking all about systems for your business. As I build my coaching business, I want to know how to effectively serve clients and make more money doing it. This podcast will pull back the curtain to reveal exactly how successful coaches are building their empires. Join me as I engage with top coaches from all over the world to discover their secrets. No theatrics and no theory, just real life strategy. My name is William Winterton, and this is Coaching Success Radio. Hey, what's going on? Okay, let's bring things right. There we go. All right, way better. Wondering what's going on? I'll tell you exactly what's going on. We get so crazy wrapped up in our business. We get so excited about the new projects that we're doing that we start just piling things on one after another. Pretty soon we have all these ideas and all these strategies and we're killing ourselves because we're doing too much by ourselves. So we say, okay, I've got to hire somebody out. I've got to bring on a VA. I've got to get some part-time help. So you bring somebody on and you realize that there's nothing in place to show them how to get done the things that you want to get done. And so you're having to go through and train. And we get into this process in our head like, okay, look, by the time I train somebody and by the time I go through and figure out how to explain everything and write it all down, it'd just be faster and easier to do it myself. Anybody with me on this? Anybody agree that this is sometimes how we think as entrepreneurs? Guilty, right? Here's the problem with that. You're gonna get to where you're gonna outgrow yourself and you're not gonna be able to keep up. You're gonna work 70, 80 hours a week and you're gonna be slowing yourself down, feeding yourself less, having less clients coming through your pipeline, serving the clients that you have far less than you could be, all because you don't take the time to put the proper systems in place to train people and train yourself to follow the best processes to get things done that have to get done anyway. But things that you don't systemize, you don't put into some kind of a structure or order, and you just kind of do it with little post-it notes everywhere. It doesn't work. Listen, I brought in a systems expert today. This is Briar Harvey, and I wanted her to come on and talk about how to create systems, how to organize systems, the importance of systems, why it matters. When I first got started as an entrepreneur, gotta be honest, I was not a systems person at all. I hated the idea because I just thought it was something I had to do that was gonna take time away from actually growing my business, right? I actually had this wrong idea in my head that putting together a system was going to be a grueling, awful task and it was going to be too much work and I couldn't afford to waste time doing that. I had too many other things going on. The problem with that thinking is that it's so backwards. You're actually wasting a lot more time by not initially setting things up properly in the first place and saving yourself a lot of headache down the road. So you can eventually hire out other people. And even if you don't hire, even if you don't bring anybody else into your program, into your business, just having something in place to show you precisely step by step what you need to do every time, it really streamlines your business and makes things work. And so if you don't do that and you just bypass that and you think, okay, I'm just gonna make this work on the fly, I'm a creative, right? I'm just gonna do this off the cuff. You're gonna ruin yourself. You're gonna wear yourself out. I've had people on the program before who talk about burnout. Systems are super, super important, and Briar is an expert in this. Now, she has her own podcast. She has her own systems program that she runs her clients through. She comes in and talks about some of the strategies that she's implemented that are super simple, super effective, and she kind of gives an overview of what the importance of building a system and how to do it and what kind of systems we're even talking about, right? It's a very vague, it's a very abstract concept to build systems. But when you start putting it to practice, it makes a lot of sense, and it helps to develop you as a better business owner for the future. So here we are right now, Briar Harvey. Tell me a little bit of the systems side of you. What got you into this side of your world where you realized that I need to be somebody who figures out systems?
Well, it's a coaching show, so it's a fun story, right? We all have the fun Genesis story. 5 years ago, I was working as a sex and relationship coach. I had this fantastic program for women who had given birth and needed to get their sex lives back. And I had launched this group coaching program. I was 36 weeks pregnant at the time, and I had a full-term stillbirth. And went to the hospital expecting a baby, came home with nothing. So
wow.
I could not talk about women getting their sex life back with their baby when I had no baby. So I tried to keep things afloat for a while. It didn't work. And I started ghostwriting and then creating courses as a way to bring in some money. And I kind of fell into systems because at the time I had these kids that I was supposed to be homeschooling and this business that I was supposed to be running. And my whole life had fallen apart. And I lost a lot of blood, so I was very anemic. And just getting out of bed was a challenge. So I had to create all of these personal systems in order for me to just survive. And then it became, I don't know, it's become the thing that I'm really good at and have worked out for other people. It's kind of, I fell into it, but I do love the work now, and it's something I'm very passionate about.
Systems is a very real, powerful, needed part of your business, but it can seem a little bit abstract when you just talk about you need systems, and people are like, okay, and they have no idea what the crap you're talking about. So
they do not.
Explain to me. I have no idea what systems are. Explain to me what you're talking about.
Okay, so when you look at your business, there's a lot going on in the back end. You have tasks that you have to manage, you have projects you have to manage. If you're a coach, you have clients you have to manage, you have group programs, you have courses, maybe you have membership or subscription programs with a bunch of extra people involved in that. There's a lot of moving pieces and parts. And most of us have we start very small because we start with like the free stuff, right? And then we hack it together with other bits and pieces. Like, I'll keep all of my article notes in Evernote because it's a great free platform for that. And then I'll write all of my stuff in Google Documents because that's where it all lives. And then I'll do project management in Trello or Asana, and that's where it all lives. And then you hack all these bits together and you end up with just a ton of duplicate information. You have stuff that you should be giving to a VA to do, but you can't because you don't have systems for it. You don't know how to farm this out properly. You don't have a back end. You do all of your billing on your own. You do all of these, so there's all of the bits and pieces. And it's really easy to build an overarching system. There are several that do it for you that charge a lot of money for it, but you can actually build your own in a way that will work for you.
So basically, you're just taking everything as we first start out, just like you said, and instead of just trying to piecemeal patchwork this whole thing together, are you talking about building a system from the beginning? Like, okay, so when I first get started, I would approach you and be like, look, I am starting my business. I need to start from the ground like here, or is this like more of your clients are people who've been like, I've been doing this for 4 years, I'm done, I need help, and they're drowning?
My clients tend to be intermediate to advanced, and they have figured out that this isn't going to work for them anymore, but they don't know what to do because investigating these systems takes a lot of time, and figuring out what you'll actually use every time you have to adopt a new system. There's this transition time, right, where you have to go, okay, now how do I make this work in my life? If you switch from Trello to Asana, you may be able to move the cards over, but you still have to make it all rework in that kind of system and organization. So a lot of them just simply don't. They're like, people come to me with actual systems, but what they're really keeping track of all of their information on is index cards and sticky notes attached to the computer monitor. And they're just drowning in all of these things and don't know what to do about it. But there are actual back-end solutions for these kinds of problems.
Right, everybody's got a system in place. It's just not ideal. Having a bunch of Post-it notes and then trying to record stuff on your phone randomly and like, oh crap, and emailing your stuff to yourself. And unfortunately, we've all been there. So let's talk some meat here for just a second. So how do we start this? How do we get this process going? Let's say for coaches who are let's start at the beginning. Let's say they're brand new, they're building their business out, and they look at this and they say, holy crap, I want to grow. I want to have 6 figures a year. I want to get to that point. I'm just starting, but I don't want this nightmare. I don't want to have to go up to Briar, 3 years from now and be like, oh my gosh, I need help. So what do I need to do to start off? What's a good beginning point?
So if you are brand new, honestly, I recommend a system in a box for you. Dubsado is my favorite, and it will do your contracts and your CRM. It's not going to manage everything for you, but it's going to manage enough of it that you'll be able to start from a place where you're at least set up for success. The more scattered you are, the more you duplicate information. And if you don't have a system where that information gets from point A to point B, and you can automate that, but that's advanced level stuff, and most people don't actually bother to do that. So if you're not going to bother to automate it, if you're not going to bother to figure it out, start with something out of the box. And yeah, Dubsado is expensive, but it's probably one of the best for someone who isn't willing to figure out the basics.
So that's basically you purchase the platform.
It's got a monthly fee, and
right, it's like a ClickFunnels or anything else.
Mm-hmm.
It's got a monthly subscription. You go to it,
Mm-hmm.
and but it basically handles at least enough for getting started, right, to get you going. So what kind of things are you talking about? Like, not just plugging them, for example, but what are like the main things that they would help you with? What is kind
So when you're a new coach, a lot of the things you need to look at are intake processes, right? So you have to figure out how to get your clients in. You need them to fill out intake forms. You need to manage files and contracts for them. You may need to manage long-term metrics for them. So there's a lot of those kinds of moving pieces parts. You'll have a CRM, which will manage all of your clients overall. You'll be able to figure out what your billing processes are if you have monthly subscriptions and those kinds of things. So it's going to manage most of the overhead. I think Dubsado has a decent project management software, but don't quote me on that. But you can make most of your billing and client management work with Dubsado.
Cool. All right. So let's take it to the next level. Let's say you've been doing this for a little while and you look at something like that and you're going, okay, this is cool. It's out of the box. It's awesome. But there would be some downfalls to it. Primarily, I think, because you've already got all this other stuff kind of running, right? I've got the Evernote and I've got the Google and I've got all these little pieces that I'm running. And I've got, some kind of a cloud system for this and right? So now an out of the box thing would not work as well, or could you still manipulate it, or is there a better option?
You can make it work. I think Dubsado and others, there are several others, 7 hats, 15 hats, I don't know, some number of hats that is similar to this. Coach Accountable is another one that is similar to this. So there are quite a few that will manage these things for you. But yeah, if you've been doing it for a while, then you actually want to go with something like Notion, which is really intimidating to people because Notion is basically a blank page. So Notion is like if Google Docs and Airtable and Trello got married and had babies.
Okay.
You have the ability to build your entire back end into this system. So you can manage all of your clients. You can manage product inventories if you have it. You can manage your documentation. You can manage class schedules. You can manage all of your writing. You can manage your personal life in Notion. I have a daily journal page that I use for task management. I do all of my yearly, weekly, quarterly, etc. planning in Notion. And then I have the entire back end. I just recently started building my own back end in Notion, and I continue to be astonished with the capability that I have to create new things in this platform.
So talk to me then, Notion, then I understand it's a much higher level. This is like your advanced, this is like your 202 course of how I'm going to get this stuff to work.
Mm-hmm.
But when you're getting into this, I think part of what we freak out about, and I mean, I may be reading way too far into this, but the idea of putting systems together, my brain, I'm a very creative person. I have just stuff just scattered all over my house, and I don't have any idea where stuff is. That's why my wife is the one who goes through and sorts out stuff and figures out how things work. Otherwise, it'd be a disaster around here. So I'm the guy who like just throws out. And to me, developing systems, I have a system for my business now. When I first got started, I did not. But I think the fear was, it's going to be so much work to create a system. It's easier for me just to do this stuff that I'm doing. When, quite honestly, complete opposite is true, right? It's going to take you some time, but yeah.
So I'll give you an example. I have a client who runs a podcast. He releases weekly. He was, before he became my client, scheduling all of his interviews, then doing his live recording, then doing all of his editing, and then doing the show notes and the post-production and all of the social media posting, right? This is the system when you have a podcast. You're nodding. You have a podcast. You know how it works.
I know exactly what that was like. Yeah.
All of those things.
Boy, is that fun.
It took him, on average, 2 days every week to execute all of these tasks. So the first thing you do when you create a system is you figure out what all of these things are, and then you figure out a way to either farm them out to people or automate them. So Notion does a lot of the project management automation, which for coaches is necessary. For my client with the podcast, we actually had to, hire some people. We hired an editor, and then we started paying his virtual assistant more money to do show notes. 2 days a week this was taking him. Now he spends an hour recording the show, and that's it. That's what having a system will do for you.
Right. And I can speak to that too, because again, when I first even started this program, I was like, all right, let's see what happens, and just start going, because you don't know what you need at that point too. When you first start into stuff, which is why I think the system thing for a brand new coach, who is primarily who I work with, the people who are just getting started or just in that first year, they still don't know everything. They don't know what they don't know. So we're going through this process and going like to figure it out. And then finally, once you have it landed, I think that's a good spot to say, okay, look, I'm wasting a lot of time. I'm spending 4 hours a day trying to figure out social media and engaging with people and posting content and creating. I need something in place. And so somebody like you, or using a system like using Notion or something like that, helps to kind of clarify and segment that so that it's not a complete overwhelm for us.
Correct.
Right.
Content calendars are amazing in Notion. But again, you have to have the content calendar to begin with. If you don't have the actual mechanics to build the system out, then you need to go back and figure out what those things are to start with. So you got to have regular content, you got to have regular clients, you got to actually be creating and maintaining things. And that stuff is hard, but you build all that stuff by hand to begin with, and it doesn't matter as much if you don't have the advanced level systems, because you're still trying to figure out what works for you as a coach.
Right. So you're saying also not to put the cart before the horse and say, I'm going to go out and spend a whole ton of money on a CRM that's going to cost me a bunch of money every month and have all these things together. And then, all right, now I got to go find some clients. It's like, that's completely the wrong way to go. Right.
Correct.
Awesome. So I think it's super important. I think people need to know this. With Notion, I know you talked about that. That's something you use with Dubsado and all these other things. When they're working with you personally, as a person who helps them through this stuff, there's obviously those programs and platforms to get them in place. What kind of things are you able to reach out? And what kind of things, let me rephrase it. What kind of things do you see people doing even after they've kind of got their systems in place? What are things that they're doing that's still like commonly messing them up and messing up their system?
That's a good question. So one of the things that I try to do is, while my systems are now being exclusively built into Notion, I try and come in and work with what my clients already have in place, regardless of what system that is. If I can con them into moving over, I absolutely will, because I think there's a better way for most people, but people get really attached. And so I think it's important to figure out what's actually working for you. If your hacked together system does legitimately work for you, that's great. Keep going with it. But if it doesn't, then you need to figure out the best ways to optimize either your time or your energy around that platform. So if you can't make it faster, maybe that's switching. Maybe that's farming out tasks to a virtual assistant. For a lot of people, it's farming out tasks to a virtual assistant because they're very convinced that they can do it all themselves. But if you're a coach, your zone of genius is not sending invoices, it's coaching people. So you should be doing more of that and less invoice sending.
Basic rule that I've been following, and I heard somebody say, I know I'm not originalist and they weren't original, but basically if it's just not your zone of power, if it's not the thing you're super good at, it's not worth your time. Pay somebody to do, find the things, just to select 4 or 5 things each week that you want to do. Really, it's just that few of major tasks, and everything else, farm it out. Even if you think it's too expensive, hire somebody to do it for you, and your life will free up and you'll be able to serve way better. And I know that was really hard for me too. I'm probably like a lot of people, wired to, I've got to do it myself. I've got to get this all to myself, and probably drives me nuts when people.
Well, and I want to emphasize here too, for coaches, specifically female coaches, which are a good portion of this business, we're also talking about household stuff. I have someone come in and clean my house twice a month. That's really important to me because I don't want to do it, and cleaning my house is not in my zone of genius. There are a lot of other things you can outsource outside of your business that you may need to consider if it is costing you too much time, because you want to be able to free up the time to create and to work with clients and to actually do the work. And that's sometimes what it takes.
That's a really great point. Thanks, because that's something we tend to forget about. We think all business, and at the same time, if you're out there pulling weeds and you hate it or whatever, it's like, maybe get somebody else to take care of it.
Yes.
So people who want to reach out to you, talk to a little bit about what you're doing in your business. And I'm going to make sure I'm understanding this as far as promoting yourself out there. Do I understand correctly? You have a podcast.
Mm-hmm.
Do you run? You just had 100 episode or something, didn't you, just recently? Or
no.
Am I backwards on something? I read something and I was like trying to figure out, and I didn't.
So what we just actually hit month 6, I think, which is pretty good. We, as of this recording, had dropped our 13th movie. So that's been, we review kids movies. So
okay, all right. That's awesome.
My podcasts are actually kind of a good note as to the quality of my own personal systems. I have this podcast and I have a personal podcast, and I manage to keep those things running while I also run my business. I basically have 2 very separate businesses because podcasts are a lot of work. They take time.
Yes, no disagreement here. So I kind of wanted to point that out because, again, there's more to life than just doing this one business. And I think that's kind of the key takeaway here. And I always strive to, I can always make more money, but I have X number of hours in the day and that's it. So what do I want to do with that? So super great. Briar, if people could reach out to you, what is probably the easiest and best way to do that, to get some help or some advice from you?
You can find me on my website. It's just briarharvey.com. I do have a bunch of Notion programming coming up this fall. So if you are interested in learning more ways to use that in your personal life and in your business, there will be stuff available on my website for that.
I would highly recommend that, especially if you've been in this business for a little while. Again, like Briar mentioned, if you're just getting started out, that may not be exactly what you need right now. But if you've got some stuff going, you've got some clients, you're dealing with the invoices, you're dealing with the content, and just being able to put that into a place where it's not sitting in your head and you actually get it out and have it laid out, it helps, especially somebody like me, somebody who's just scattered. So I cannot tell you, I appreciate your time so much, and I hope to have you back on again. This has been a great conversation.
Yeah, this has been fantastic. Thank you.
Wow, that was awesome. Thank you so much for tuning in and checking us out. New episodes are coming out every few days, including lots of conversations with massively successful coaches sharing their secrets with you. So be sure to subscribe to our podcast and YouTube channel so that you don't miss out. And if you're looking for a way to start making serious money from your coaching, you need to check out my free training. It's at williamwinterton.com. I lay out the step-by-step on how to start making 5 figures a month in the next 60 days. Check it out, WilliamWinterton.com. I'll see you next time.